Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Reef Health Update. I'm Dr. Roger Beeden, I'm the Chief Scientist at the Reef Authority. Like most people in Queensland at this point in time, we're closely watching the development of tropical cyclone Jasper in the Coral Sea and working with our colleagues from the Bureau of Meteorology to understand what's likely to happen in terms of its path across the Great Barrier Reef and probably onto the Australian coast sometime next week. Tropical cyclones can bring significant waves and wind conditions to coastal communities and of course the Great Barrier Reef, and we'll be watching its development and the consequences closely. I would encourage you, if you're out in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, to make sure that you take note of the latest information and also make the necessary precautions. Overall on the Great Barrier Reef, conditions are being driven by the established El Niño event that's occurring in the Pacific at this point in time, and also the Indian Ocean Dipole being in a positive phase on the other side of Australia over in Western Australian coast at this point in time. The combination of those conditions can lead typically to warm, dry conditions across the whole of Australia, and that's exactly what's been playing out. That said, we actually had an unseasonably wet November. And that was largely being driven by these climate events and then other factors that were going on in the Pacific. Whilst we saw a very wet November, we've actually likely to see dry, warm conditions return across much of Australia, including heat waves, which are affecting some areas at this point in time, and we'll be watching how those conditions play out in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. At the moment, sea surface temperature conditions in the Great Barrier Reef are actually relatively close to normal for this time of year, slightly above in some locations and slightly below average. Again, we'll be working with the forecasters to understand what's likely to happen and how that plays out on the Great Barrier Reef over the coming months. We also have an extensive observer network in the Great Barrier Reef region. There's the Marine Park Rangers, we also have the Crown-of-thorns Starfish Control Program, vessel staff, and of course the tourism industry and many others, observers who can actually help us to understand what's going on in the water. We received 1,450 reef health surveys in November, again spread throughout the park. Of those, about 4 to 5% gave us some insights into minor coral bleaching, some coral disease, and the effects of some coral damage. We also see a continuing crown-of-thorns starfish outbreak, with main densities of that in the southern Great Barrier Reef, particularly in some of the Swains reefs, and actually upon one particular reef in the central region. And overall, that's been largely kept in check, the outbreak as a whole, by the extensive network of activity of crown-of-thorns starfish control across the reef. It's really important that we have management actions year-round, so things like the zoning plan that puts in place the rules of what you are and aren't allowed to do in the marine park. This is critically important at setting up and supporting the health and resilience of the Great Barrier Reef, its ability to tolerate and actually bounce back from particular impacts, whether they be coral bleaching events or cyclones, and also other management actions such as the Crown-of-thorns Starfish Program, which can actually help us to support that recovery after particular impacts. It's also important that we have the stewardship programs that are being implemented across the marine park, whether it's actually addressing sources of marine debris or working in site stewardship arrangements with the tourism industry to make sure that we have the best possible future for the Great Barrier Reef. You can get more information upon what's going on the Great Barrier Reef from our Reef Health pages on our website. There's more detailed information on what I've actually summarised in the last few minutes. You can also actually look and help us by downloading the Eye on the Reef app from the app stores, and that actually helps you to understand what the rules are that are out in the Great Barrier Reef, so the zoning plan, but also you can report to us some of the amazing things that you'll see when you're out on the Great Barrier Reef, and also whether you see any reef health impacts. And that information is really important to us to help us to target our management programs to best effect into the future. Overall, when you're out in the marine park, make sure that you are aware of the conditions as they're going on, particularly in this high-risk summer season. But above all, make sure that you see the reef, love the reef, and protect the reef. Thank you for your attention.